it do? It's your boy, your brother, your friend, once again in the building. Welcome back, guys, to another segment. My man, sending to my guest here. Give me one sec. But yeah, welcome back, guys. Hope everyone is having a cool day. Has had a great weekend, and is having a good, solid. Getting ready for a good, solid new week. As we're getting ready to get started with a new week, this coming up week, starting tomorrow. Give me one sec here. I'm getting some things done here. Yes, but yeah, tonight is going to be a good session. It's not often I get to have these kind of conversations like in public, whatnot. But having a conversation about fatherhood, man, and the importance of it, and where we stand in the fatherhood as fathers, where we stand. Fathers in general, not just denoting like Black fathers or anything like that, but just fathers in general, but specifically cater more to talking to the fathers in the African American community, because I see fatherlessness has plagued, has not left almost any culture untouched, but it has hit hardest and hit most heavy in the African American community, and it's one of those just sad things that man, I can't get past it. I was one of those persons who grew up with. It's kind of hard to explain. I had my father; he was in my life, right? I knew him; he knew me. There was no estrangement, but he was not present. Like, he was not present. I don't recall really having a whole lot of interaction with my father. And I'm going to get into that in just a few moments, but I'm about to bring up our guest. I've known this brother for, man, long time, several years. It's kind of inching close to the 20-year mark, or at least 18, somewhere in that nature, in that realm. But I'm going to bring him up, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself, because the man's credits and things are long. He's very accomplished. One of the things I wish that I had, well, I'll say that in just a minute, but I want to bring him up. My dear brother, Mr. Olufemi Nathan Oshako, aka The Voice. My brother, how's it going, man?
Fighting, excuse me, fighting a good fight in it as well.
That is good. Well, I'm glad that you were able to that you found time, and that you could come on and chop it up just a little bit on fatherhood. I know that both you and I are both fathers, and it's definitely a title that we don't just hold, but it's something that we do take very seriously. It's not something Absolutely. That we walk into lightly. But I just want to give you a moment to introduce yourself to those who may be watching, so they kind of get a better feel of who you are.
Okay, well, that's somewhat of a loaded question. Okay. I'll start with pretty much how my bio goes. I am a man of God first and foremost.
Amen.
I love him with everything in my life is dedicated and devoted to him.
Mm-hmm.
As such, I am, or I should say, I obtained my ordination through Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, while still at Bethesda Temple Church.
Mm-hmm.
I currently am a member at Grace New Covenant Church. I was the executive pastor of Relationship Church. We disbanded last year, and I'm in the process of relaunching that ministry.
Amen.
So working on that. I am a father.
Yes.
I am the there are two. I have two fruit of my loins, which are Nathan and Nicholas, and three fruit of my love. Well, actually, like four now, but I have Zion, who's 23. His little brother Ethan, who is Nathan's 18. Aiden, I'll say. We'll just go ahead and put Aiden Norman, who had the pleasure of going to his final game yesterday for football. But Aiden Norman is 17. Ethan is 16.
Okay.
And Nick is 13.
Oh, nice, man. So you've like not only have natural biological children, but you've become a father-like figure to others as well.
Yes. And I got one girl too, Gabrielle Hammond. She's 27, I think. 26, 27.
Nice.
27.
Nice. And my thing is, and I'm the father of three, two boys and a girl. I got Shane, Shania, and Sheldon. Shane, of whom you nicknamed Tex. Growing up, my oldest son, he is, as a kid, he was just bow-legged, so he gave him the nickname, the moniker Tex, and who he just made his sixth grade basketball team. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops and getting him acclimated into team sports. But just wanted to jump right into it. I want to launch with this scripture. It is out of Proverbs chapter 4, verse 1 through 9, and this is the NLT version. So kind of bear with me, get through this. It says, "My children, listen when your father corrects you. Pay attention and learn good judgment. From giving you good guidance, don't turn away from my instructions. For I too was once my father's son, tenderly loved as my mother's only child. My father taught me, take my words to heart, follow my commands, and you will live. Get wisdom, develop good judgment. Don't forget my words or turn away from them. Don't turn your back on wisdom, for she will protect you. Love her and she will guard you. Getting wisdom is the wisest thing you can do. And whatever else you do, develop good judgment. If you prize wisdom, she will make you great. Embrace her and she will honor you. She will place a loving wreath on your head. She will present you with a beautiful crown." And that, as I was reading that, one of the things that kind of stood out, because I wanted to, again, we're focusing on fatherhood and whether we are walking in his shoes, as in the shoes of our fathers, or are we creating our own by happenstance? Because oftentimes in our community, we don't have fathers who that we can go to in those moments to get the necessary correction or get wisdom or any of those things that we just read about. So with that, I kind of want to ask, like, what makes a good father from your perspective?
I would say what makes a good father and just a good parent in general, two things. Well, two things that could kind of be rolled into one. Genuine love for your children and understanding that love from your children's perspective is spelled T-I-M-E. You have to spend time with them. You have to be there, with them. And it's something that I struggle with a little bit, is trying not to teach the whole time that we're together, but just be there, that you want to show me your roadblocks. Okay. You want to show me all these memes while I'm driving. Okay. Well, let me make sure I'm not in position where I'm going to hurt us, wait till we get to a stoplight or something, and then you can show me. But just taking taking those times, sitting down with them and enjoying the things that they enjoy, taking interest in what interests them, being genuine and being vulnerable
Gotcha.
with your children, saying, I'm sorry, sharing
Wow.
that, hey, dad, messed that one up big time. And
Wow.
I'm a human just like you
Right.
are, and I'm going to make mistakes just like you. And
Right.
the same way you're looking to me for forgiveness, I'm going to be looking to you for that as well.
Right now, and holding it right there, because that's one of the critical things that I was thinking about in the, I would say, the last couple of months, like off and on, is being able to, because in our community, in the African American community, I've never heard a parent apologize to a child for doing something that may have not been right, or even asking their child's forgiveness, let alone apologizing. Because I grew up, we grew up in this, same era that hearing a parent apologize was just like unheard of. At least in my neck of the woods where I grew up, I had never heard grandparents apologize, never heard parents apologize for anything. It was like, what I say is law. So hearing you say that, it makes me feel like, okay, wow, like this is something that is needed. Like we need to be able to tell our children, hey, you know what? I apologize. I made a mistake. That was wrong. And being able to say that as a parent, as a father, how critical do you think that is for a son or a daughter to hear that? And then for a parent to ask for an apology, or not ask for apology, but ask for forgiveness. Like, hey, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Forgive me. How does that help shape them, and how does it affect them?
I think it's vital because, and again, as stated, first and foremost, I'm a man of God. And knowing that I represent a physical, I'm a physical representation of who God is. And often, because God is our Father, we view him through the lens of our earthly father, of our natural father. And because I am a flawed human being, it's vital for me to say, hey, look, I'm messed up. I am not going to get it right all of the time. And when I don't get it right, I'm also man enough to say I didn't get it right. I'm not going to let my ego say, well, I did that wrong, but if you hadn't done this, this, and this, then I wouldn't have done that. Or let me say, I fight against that. And I know I was wrong, but still I was wrong. Let me take the butts out. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Because again, especially as men and as men who are raising men, it's important that they know that, hey, it's okay to mess up. Oftentimes for children and boys specifically, your father's a superhero. They can do no wrong. Yes, I can. And I will. And I'm going to wrong you. And I'm sorry for any time, because it's not intentional. It's never intentional on my end to hurt anyone. But it's going to happen. And when it happens, again, I have to be man enough to say, hey, I see that. I acknowledge that. I was wrong for that. Please forgive me. Because it also gives them the freedom to own their mistakes too. To know that making a mistake is, as people say, failures are not fatal. And if they see, hey, dad tried this and that didn't work, and he's still alive and he's still, great, and I still, love him and he's still wonderful, that gives me room and leeway to maybe take some chances and make some mistakes myself and know that I can recover.
And because one of the things, and I think it kind of took my oldest by surprise one night. I had to discipline him or correct him or whatever have you. And it was the method that I utilized, because again, as fathers, like outside of the Bible, because I'm a huge proponent of the scriptures, and the scriptures is our instruction manual. Because I hear parents often say, this parenting doesn't have an instruction manual. It actually does, but some people don't believe in the instruction manual that it exists. But I digress there. But so I had to discipline him. But my thing is, I have only learned to discipline by how I was disciplined. So, but I'm working on developing a different strategy. Whereas, like my father, again, he wasn't. I knew who he was. He who knew I was. On the weekend, sometime whenever I would go to my grandmother's house, sometimes he would be there. Sometimes he wasn't. So whenever he was, though, it was like very little interaction, really. I would go downstairs. He'd be down there watching the game, and the time, as you said, like love is Time, spelled Time. I would just sit there and watch the game. And at that time, I wasn't into basketball. I wasn't into like watching sports on TV. I was like wanting to do stuff outside. But when it was time for him to discipline me or correct me, it was like he was down in my face, right? Like within a few inches. And he was a military man. He was a Marine. So everything was like staunch, and that's how I knew. That's how I learned, rather, to correct. And so up until this point, I'm working on re-strategizing how I discipline my children, because it's like, sometimes you can do the whooping thing, but it's like after a while, it's like, okay, you guys are getting older. That's not gonna fly. I have to be able to use my words. And so I'm like, okay, well, and then I start like getting down on their level and in their face. And what hit me one day was, I believe it was my oldest. I was in his face. I was correcting him. And as I was talking, man, when I say it hit me like a gut punch, is as I was talking, I was hearing my father's voice talk to me. And my reaction that I would recall, I started seeing a reaction in his face. And the reaction was the eyes getting very glassy and the tears billowing in his eyes. And I was like, after I was done, I was like, I'm telling him to go sit down. I was like, whoa. I'm like, wait a minute. And I felt bad. I really felt bad. So afterwards, I had him come back in, and it was that moment where I had to apologize. Like, hey, I apologize. Like, I'm sorry. It was crazy. Just that moment where I'm like, yo, like I can't do this. This is not, because my thing was, as a father, I feel like in my mind, my job is to protect my children from having, as best I can, of course, experiencing any kinds of trauma. And then it occurred to me one day, it was like, you may very well be the trauma, or you're becoming the trauma that you're trying to protect them from. Right? It was like, you don't want to become the trauma that you're trying to protect them from, if that makes any difference.
It does. I want to ask more questions just to get a better understanding, because obviously for you it was a trigger and it was traumatic for you. Was it more so because, again, you in his position, yes, it would be much more of a traumatic experience because of the lack of relationship that you have with your father.
Right.
Do you think that was the same, or I should say that it came off the same way for him as it would have for you? Or is it possible that you may have projected some things because of your experience?
It's kind of funny because, and anybody watching, definitely feel free to ask any questions and whatnot. We'll definitely address those. But I feel like it's kind of funny because even from when I first knew I was going to be a father, I felt like the Lord impressed upon my mind that my relationship with him and with them, as they go, was going to mirror
Mm-hmm.
my relationship with him, with my Heavenly Father.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, it has to be that way. And I was like, whoa, well, the Lord is never gonna, at least in my mind, even in his correction and chastisement, it will still be from a place of love.
Mm-hmm.
And in those moments where I would have to correct and chastise like that, it was coming from a place of love. It was never like a place of malice, like, I want you to fear me.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that. And I think because it helped him understand afterwards when I apologized, it helped him understand that, okay, well, Dad's not always like this. He's not always, correcting me like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I do, and I had to, in my apology, I had to explain, like, understand that when I have to correct you, it's still from a place of love, but I need to work on a different strategy, basically. So I don't feel that. So to answer your question, I don't feel like it was like a role reversal of any sort, if that makes sense.
Okay. Now, I was just wondering if the same kind of impact a father who has no interactions with their child, and then let me not say the only, but the most impactful interactions you're having is discipline. It's going to come off a lot different than, someone that I know you, I know the time you spend with your kids, and the things you all do, that the discipline can and should hit differently from someone with whom you have a relationship versus someone who you don't have a relationship with. And I know for me, it's at least with my interactions with the Lord, have there been times that he's got in my face and I've teared up and or just broke down? Absolutely. And I needed to because of what was going on. Versus again, being some absentee, person that just, comes in. I was sharing in Christian education. That's the fancy way of saying Sunday school now. I was sharing in Christian education. I teach the teens there at Grace New Covenant Church. And I was sharing with them some of the interactions that I've had with my father and how horrible those things were. Short story long, or I should say long story short, because I usually do it the opposite way. I take a short story and I make it really long. My father practiced voodoo. With that, with that comes a lot of evilness. And he was just like evil incarnate. I thought he was the devil, and it's probably because he had demons actively influencing his life. However, and I like to do this to ensure that I'm honoring my father. In the last 3 years of his life, 3 to 4 years of his life, the relationship that we had was night and day different than what I had with him growing up. And the time that we spent in those last 4 years overshadowed the verbal abuse that I would receive, the physical abuse that I would receive from him, all of the lies and broken promises, living in abject poverty. The man took my beds as a child. When my mother separated from him, she took my bunk beds, and he came and took them away because he found out that she was sleeping in one. So you're not going to sleep in my son's bunk beds or in my beds. So he took them. So this is the kind of stuff that I endured in dealing with him. Again, however, the Lord did a miraculous thing in the end. And I can genuinely say I love my father. And I'm grateful that he was my father because of the mending that took place in those final days. And I've kind of lost myself here. But yeah, I mean, I'll just stop because I forget what I was going to say. Yeah.
And with that, it kind of made me think back to a funny bit that I've seen on Kevin Hart. He was talking about his father who would get angry and he would take back whatever it was that he bought. And like, you know, he's like, well, he bought some Christmas lights one Christmas for the tree and he got upset at the kids and the mom. He started taking down the Christmas lights, walking around the tree, taking them down. So it can make me think about that. Like, hey, you know, I'm not gonna have you sleep in my bed, so I'm gonna take the beds. So
I'm sorry, I remember what I was gonna say.
Gotcha. Yeah, go ahead.
If ever he had any kind of discipline, it landed a whole lot differently than the discipline I got from the men that I assigned the title and the honor of father to, which would be Levi Rodney King Sr. and Reginald Dixon. Any discipline that they gave landed totally different than what I received from Anthony because of the lack of relationship that I had with him.
Okay. So would you say that having a relationship, would you say that helped when it came to how you received the discipline?
Yeah, anytime they disciplined me, and it wasn't, I don't know that I ever got a physical whooping from either one of them.
Oh man.
But anytime there was any kind of discipline, I was heartbroken. Because again, these men were my fathers. These were the men that I loved. These are the men that were showing me kind of how to live and how to be a man. So any kind of discipline was heartbreaking, and I did not do it, you know, again.
Right.
I don't have that testimony for Nathan and Nicholas because yeah, we've had to do some different things. Nick is more sensitive, so for him, speaking can be enough. Nathan, yeah, it can be, and especially at this point in life, you know, it's more than enough. Had to discipline him just or had to go into some kind of disciplinary things with him just today. But yeah, has that been the way that discipline has happened? No. I mean, always no. For the most part, yes. But has there been corporal punishment? Absolutely.
Wow. So, you know, with the theme of the evening, fatherhood, walking in his shoes or creating our own, would you say that you are walking in your father's shoes, or are you creating your own? And by the way, anyone who's watching on Facebook and YouTube, definitely feel free to throw any questions or comments you may have in there in the chat, and we'll try to address those as well. So do you kind of feel like you're walking in your father's shoes, or do you feel like you're having to create your own?
It's a bit of both. So I'm walking in my father's shoes in the sense of following the things that the men that I honored as fathers in my formative years, following some of the things that I saw them do. And following some of the things that my father, my natural father, taught me towards the end of his life as well. But then also walking in my own shoes in that I'm doing my level best to walk in Christ's shoes. So, and not that, well, my natural father, you know, definitely not, but not that, you know, not that Levi or Reginald were not trying to use that as a guidebook to parenting. However, knowing how the Lord does and deals with me and deals with his people in general, I do my best to do that with them. And then I am constantly seeking the Lord as well for direction on, you know, how to do things. One thing I'm working on, and again, working on. And I share these things with the boys as well. It's like, hey, especially with Nick, it's like, okay, because he's a teenager and he's starting to feel himself and wanting to kind of spread out and do some different things. And I don't want to hinder him in doing so. Of course, I still have to protect him as a father. So there's some things that are still going to be a no, but for the most part, I try to give him liberties. With all that, though, he's still a little kid and he's still doing stupid little kid stuff. He loves to play all the time, and it drives me. It's like, okay, dude, please, not right now. And he's getting better with it, but I've worked on the rule of two, and I've shared that with him. It's like, look, I don't want to blow up at you. And sometimes when if my anxiety is high or something, you can set me off pretty easily, especially because you're never serious, and it just drives me. But again, in trying not to quell who he is, I have to just take it, and I'm learning, and I think you'll appreciate this. As he says stupid stuff, instead of internalizing it and getting angry, I'll just stop. I'll take a breath and I say, I acknowledge you. And I'll move on. I got that from Roman Reigns. Acknowledge me. So, but I was like, you know what? Let me just say, okay, I see you. I acknowledge that you said what you said, because normally I would just be quiet. That would be my way of doing so. Okay, I'm just gonna be quiet. I'm gonna move on. And he keep on. It's like, okay, I'm trying to be quiet because you're irritating me, but at the same time, I don't want to blow either. So I just say, I acknowledge you. And also letting them know you got 2 times. And I will let you know when you're on that second time, because once you hit 3 times, you are now actively, you're actively looking to injure, whether you mean to injure or not. You're moving into that injurious territory, whether that be with me or, with his brother. It's like, okay, you're playing, but your brother, and my oldest is autistic. And because he's autistic, he takes things very, very literally. It's like, dudes, you can't play with him like that. Also letting him know, it's like, look, you play a lot too, and you come and you do silly stuff. So you're going to have more grace with others as well. But when he's gotten past, it's like, okay, that's 2. Well, no. I mean, I knew. It was like, well, no, it sounded like you were getting ready to go to 3 and 4, and you done 3 and 4, and I've had to yell and say, hey, cut it out. So once you get past 2, you're moving into a place of injuring the other person, because they have made it clear what you're doing. I'm not comfortable with, and I want you to stop. And you're not stopping, which means you're now hurting that person. So regarding their feelings and what they've said. Go ahead.
So I guess, like, when you say like you're at 2 or 3, is it like strikes, or you're like levels, or like explain the
it's like 3 strikes. Like you got 2 times to do it.
Okay.
With the 3rd time, whatever consequences come, they come. And this is a ride that you have purchased the ticket for. So don't come to go, okay, I'm sorry. I get that you're sorry. But you had the opportunity to do something different. I gave you, plenty of warning. We already laid out the ground rules. So, at this point, it is what it is.
Gotcha. Because I feel like growing up, I feel like the way the Lord had moved in my life was he put all the wrong examples around me of like what not to do. This is how I don't want you to be this way. So I'm showing you these examples and whatnot. And the men that were put in front of me were not the most stellar examples. I mean, let's be honest, like, they weren't the scum of the earth. They weren't like, guys who were like dealers or anything like that, but they just weren't, okay. They weren't great examples of like what I would think a man should be, And so I kind of feel like the Lord just kind of put those wrong examples of saying, you see this, you see that, you remember that, you see that. I don't want you to be in any wise like any of those men that I put before you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got saved, I remember going to the late Bishop Johnson, and I asked him like how. I felt kind of weird asking the question because the I guess just the framing of it, but I was in all seriousness, I'm like, how do I become a man of God?
Mm.
You know, and he leaned back in his chair. And, you know, whenever you met with Bishop Johnson in his office, it's already felt intimidating that you were just there. And so he leaned back and he's like, find 2 or 3 men in the church and observe them and begin to talk to them. He said, and begin to, in a sense, adopt traits from them that you admire, that you like, and begin to talk to them and let them pour into you. And so and I was like slightly above 19 years old. I was at least 22, 23. You know, in the eyes of the law, I was already an adult, but I felt like I did not have what I needed because I didn't have the example set before me of what a man was. So here I was now kind of fishing around, trying to see how do I not just become a man, but a man of God. And I was able to have the examples put before me. And so with that, and these men helped shape my life and my walk. So how would you say, how have our fathers shaped our lives, both our natural fathers, biological fathers, and the men that we engrafted into our lives as father figures to us? How have they shaped our respective lives? And I'll let you lead on that one.
So much of the shaping comes in the same fashion as you were speaking of just before, how with each of them, naturally, there are things that they did that I incorporated. And there are things that they did that I said, okay, thank you for showing me that example. Not going to do that because that's not good. And that's not going to work out well for me or for anyone else involved.
Right.
So again, for the most part, just observe, as you were sharing, observing their lives, observing how things turned out. Again, this is why love is spelled Time. You can't learn how to be a man and a good father, or a father at all, without having some sort of example. Now, that example may not be there all day, every day. That was not the case for me. Even though I grew up in Levi King's home, because of being a pastor and because of being having dual occupations, being a pastor and then having to work a job as well, he was rarely at home. So I would glean things when we were, at church together, or in different places where we were together. There'd be times where he would just say, all right, come on, fellas, ride with me, and pour into us. Same thing with Reginald. He was always on the road, always in and out of town. So whatever things I could glean from him when he was around, I got. Same thing with my father. My father was very intentional with his time with me. Whenever we were together, he was trying to instill different things in me. This is where I get much of my chivalry from. It's from my father, teaching me these things. I eat with, if I'm at a restaurant, I use my left hand to eat with. The fork goes on the left hand as is set at the table, because these are the things my father gave to me. And then, like you said, with even men around the church, seeing how they interacted with their children and how they interacted with me and how they poured into me. and observing some things that they did that I didn't like. I was like, I don't like that. So, but yeah, taking those things in, as the old saying says, eating the meat and spitting out the bones. And,
right.
you know,
And I definitely agree with that. And my guy, one of my brothers, Cortez Watson, said, growing up in a single parent home, surrogate father figures, real men of God, are the ones who had a great impact on his life. And I gotta agree with that, because in my life I didn't have the good examples, the godly examples. They weren't even like good men, let alone godly men. And so when I got of age, those men, one of the first men was my late pastor, Bishop James A. Johnson. He was one of the ones who poured into me as a young man of God growing up, showing me by example, even at a distance, those qualities and what a man of God is to do. And then the other guy was Elder Joe Lewis Middleton. And I was kind of nervous and intimidated to even approach him because he would always have this, he had that similar stern exterior look about him on his countenance of his face, similar to my dad. Like, I'm like, I don't want to go up and talk to him. But he was like the kindest, most gentle guy, and like poured into me a whole lot. And even also the great elder, or now suffragan bishop, Ronald E. Stevens, definitely poured into me over the years. And like just those men, just like that trifecta of men, like really impacted who I am and started to kind of mold me. And so then I not just studied their walk with God, I started looking at what kind of husband and father they were. I wanted to be a father similar to them. Like, how did they interact with their children? What did they pour into their kids? Those kind of things. And so, and while I was able to, what do you call it? When you're able to imitate someone, I was able to imitate them, from a humor standpoint and from a for flattery standpoint. But the greater thing was I wanted to imitate them, like their lifestyle, just not like be them per se, but like I wanted the impact of their fingerprint on my life. I wanted that to be seen and whatnot. So I'm still implementing a lot of things that they had shown me, which was definitely critical. So I wanted to switch gears because I remember I was part of this group at a local high school here in St. Louis. It was a U City High School. There was a program called Man of Valor. And I remember being a speaker going into that and having the opportunity to pour into those young men there. And one of the talk sessions was called The Masks That We Wear. And they showed a little video clip of a guy in West Coast California who had a video. He was a teacher, and he did this whole mask theory and philosophy where he had a piece of paper and he had the young men write on a piece of paper on the front of the mask. There was a picture of a mask on the front of the paper to write everything that they felt people saw about them and all that stuff, the exterior basically. And then they had them flip paper around and write on the opposite side what's inside that mask and what was really going on. And one of the guys, I'll never forget it, it's like imprinted in my mind. One of the things that on the outside of the mask is one young kid wrote, funny, sense of humor, charming, yada, 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 life of the party. On the inside, he's wrote like hurting, fatherlessness. And the fact that like his father was right there in the same city as he lived in, but was not present, would not come and see him, would not try to be directly involved in his life. And the way this young man broke, but then also he broke down and got emotional. But then it was such a beautiful thing to see his other young men peers rally around him and embrace him and kind of say, hey, we're not here to judge you. We're not here to belittle you or laugh at you for today. He's like, because we're experiencing the same thing. And the stuff that they would open up about in those circles was really flooring. So it was really like touching. And so I look at that as like when you're able to have that, is what we're doing as fathers, the things that we're pouring into our children. Do we feel that because they're up against a society that's very influential, very influential? And you said, you know, your son, he's kind of coming into his own. Like, you don't want to deter that or like try to cut that down, but because you want him to kind of spread his wings. But it's like, do we think that what we're pouring into them and just being present, do we think that that's gonna have a solid impact on them?
I can only speak regarding my experiences.
Yeah.
And it always warms my heart when I see them making the right decisions. And when I see them implementing the things that we've said. And to Cortez's point, and I want to say, what's up to him? It took me a minute to figure out who he was. Looking at the avatar, I was like, this name was like, oh, that's Cortez. Okay. All those men were also very influential in my life as well, but that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to say what's up. So saying that,
right,
I know that again, the things are taking root because of the decisions that I see them make. Again, I was in a somewhat corrective mode just before this in dealing with Nathan, and I won't go into all the specifics because we don't have the time, and it's not it wouldn't be the best thing to talk about anyway. Just long story short, there was someone at school that was a negative influence, and this person has gone to great lengths to continue to be a part of his life. Now he's graduated high school now, not in school anymore with this person, but they are in the same kinds of programs. And come to find out, this person reached out to him and spoke with him recently. It's like, you can't talk to this person.
Right.
It's like, you know, and I understand the things that they're saying, and they very well may mean them, but they mean you no good. Your interactions with them over years' time has shown they don't mean you any good. So you need to leave them alone. And when I was speaking with him about this, I thought that this was taking place or I should say over the phone. And speaking with him, it was not. This was, they were at the same place and they came over and they said something, and, you know, that's how the conversation went. He was acting like he was doing something he wasn't supposed to do. So I did put a stop to some things that could have led to more damage for him. However, him not speaking to this person, even when they were in joint groups, they were in some kind of Google Meet something.
Oh yeah.
I was like, you know, were you talking to them? I was like, no. So were they talking to you? He was like, no. I said, okay, that's fine. And thank you for not engaging them, because you know your history with them, and that would not have been good. They were all in the same class together, and somebody started up a class thing for them, and that's what took place. Ooh, you know, so I was just sharing with them. I was like, thank you, you know, I appreciate that. Same thing with my baby boy. He's shown the desire to make the right decisions. So because of that, again, I'm giving him a bit more space and leash because he's shown himself trustworthy, and he's shown that the things of God that we've placed in him, you know, that those things are coming, you know, to the forefront. I know I was asking him about some things musically not too long ago, and he was like, "Well, I don't really listen to that kind of music." I was like, "Well, thank you, Lord. You know, the things you listen to are the artists and things that I've been able to introduce to him." So,
Nice.
not that he isn't influenced by that, because you hear that stuff all day, every day in school. People saying things to you. It happened when I was growing up. So it's not that it's not there, but that's not something he's actively necessarily seeking out. So
that's good. And so how as a father now, how critical is it? How important is it to be intentional as a father? Like doing things, like you said, time is how you show love. Like creating memories, doing things for purpose, on purpose. Like how critical is that as a father to do that? And how, like you say, the last couple of years with your father kind of overshadowed the previous years. Like how important is that to be intentional in the things that we're doing as fathers and as men, not just to our biological children, but because I desire to be like a father figure to other people down the road whenever the Lord sees fit. But how critical and important is that?
it's vital. Yeah, it's vital. Anything that you're doing should have some intentionality. If it comes about by happenstance, great. But once you recognize what's going on, there's some intentionality that needs to be there. For me, specifically because of the situations that I experienced in life, especially as a very young man. I lost my mother at the age of 17. I was 17, she was 47. I'm the same age my mother was when she died now. So I realized how impactful the time was. Very short period of time that I had with her, but very impactful time as well. So I am constantly doing things whenever my boys are with me. We're spending time together intentionally, whether they want to or not. we're gonna do something together. So every night, if it's my week, we were watching The Flash. So we were watching The Flash together, one episode every night. On Saturdays, I shouldn't say Saturdays, on Sundays after church, we will normally sit down and watch something and have lunch. We have those rhythms that we have so that there's time for us to bond and do other things. I may choose that we watch the game, and thank God the one game that we watched, the Broncos won, because Nathan would have been devastated, like I said, real literal. But so we're doing that and just spending that time together. Now, I know that even in doing that, are they going to watch the stuff the whole time? No, but we're together. We're doing things together. I'm letting him tickle me, Nathan. That's his love language. So I'm letting him tickle me, or I'm stopping him before he can as our means of interacting. Nick is saying something stupid, and I'm either acknowledging him or trying not to let it bother me, too bad. And we go on, but this is our rhythm. We're spending that time together. We're creating those memories, because one of the things I know is very important regarding this is you don't know what time you have left. Right. It could be something health-wise. The same thing that took my mom out is in me, and I had to have a procedure like she had. That same thing is in Nick. So we're having to watch some things, with him as far as what he eats and things of that nature. But who's to say me going to the store doesn't end in a in a high-speed head-on collision and I'm gone. You just don't know what tomorrow holds. And because you don't know what tomorrow holds, you have to make the most of every moment that you have. You gotta be intentional Of course, it can't be teaching all the time,
Right.
but you want to make sure that you're creating memories and that you're leaving something for them to talk to your grandchildren about when you're not here.
Right. And I heard you say something when you were talking about you spending time together. It's something that I had recently, I'll say within the last 2 months or so, I have done, because my wife and I took the little love language test, like what is our love language, and I discovered that they had one for children.
Yeah.
And so I sat each one of them down and I did the questions with them so that they understood what the question was and let them answer to the best of where they are, mentally and emotionally. And I found out what each one of their love language is. And so I'm now striving to construct whatever time we do have together, that I'm speaking their love language and that I'm learning, because right now it's in my notes in my phone, like, okay, I got to brief it every now and again so I can know what their love language is, so that I can start tailoring the time and my interaction with them based on their love languages. And so any father out there who may have watched this or have been watching, it's never too late for you to kind of jump in and become more present and show that love through time, spending time with your child or children, or whether it be biologically or ones that the Lord has engrafted to you, and to have influence and to give wisdom. Like you said, everything is not about teaching when you're spending time with them, but just sometimes I would just go outside and throw the ball around with my boys, or go and mess with my daughter, or lay across her bed or whatever have you, and talk to her, and those kinds of things. So it's about being intentional, because my thing is, I'm like you. I'm like, I don't know when my day or our time is. None of us know. And my father left here at the age of 46 with cancer. And I'm like, I'm 42. And I'm like, I don't feel old,
Right.
So I could only imagine where he was during that time and season of his life. So I'm like, wow, I want to always be there. Of course, we all do, but getting to a point where I understand as a father their love language, and strive to speak to them and to give them what they need. And so I'm doing everything I can to kind of, and I know that you are as well, so that whenever our time is up and the Lord calls our ticket and we're out of here, that we've left an indelible mark in the lives of our children as fathers, and that we have given, like, almost like I heard a saying that said, if as best you can, die on E, empty, having given everything that you possibly can. And so that's what I'm striving to do. And so as a father, to close out, any advice for the father, or those fathers who may be watching again, any piece of advice, the thought that you can leave them, who they're either walking in their father's shoes, whether it be good or bad, or if they're having to create their own shoes to walk in and fill, what would you give them?
In my journey through life, one thing that I've really prided myself on, and I've been intentional about, is learning, and always learning. I share with some of the young people now, some of my bonus children, and others. It's like, hey, I don't want to be an old head. And there's a father that we share that definitely is an old head, and I share that with them as we speak. It's like, oh, just an old head. Stop being old. So when you hear me say that, Sean, you'll know. It's like, just stop being old, please. But anyway, I don't want to be an old head. I want to be OG.
Okay.
And in being an OG, the OG knows what's going on. They may not use the terminology that's being used right now. They may not dress the way that the youngsters are dressing, but they know what's going on. And that's what I want. I want to know what's going on. And not only know what's going on, I want to be better all the time. So never stop learning, never stop looking to better yourself, because as you learn and you better yourself, you then gain more tools to equip your children with. So always look to improve. If we have breath in our bodies, that means there's an opportunity for us to do things differently than we did before. And we should look to maximize those opportunities.
That's what's up. Well, sure. I do appreciate you coming on and sharing everything that you share, bro, because I'm at that point where I'm just, again, striving to figure this thing out and build as I go, as we go with the instruction manual that we have, that is the Word of God, and sharing with one another. Because I think there's something huge when it comes to building a tribe and a community of people. Because again, you've been a father longer than I, so I look to guys like you and other guys who've been fathers longer than I have to, how to do this, or how do I tackle this when it comes up. So I definitely appreciate that, and definitely appreciate your time on this Sunday evening. So I'm gonna let you get back to the game. As Philly is playing Miami, is gonna be a good one. So hopefully we'll definitely try to chop it up again soon. And have a good evening, bro. Appreciate you.
Likewise. God bless. Keep it together.
All right. So yes, I appreciate you all coming on this evening. Cortez, definitely appreciate your comments, brother. Definitely gonna have you on soon. But appreciate everybody. Have a good evening. You already know. Until next time, deuces.